Well, it had to happen sooner or later. The Pittsburgh Pirates lose for the first time during the 2021 season. It only took 2 games, but they didn't lose opening day. They now will create a winner-take-all for the opening series on Easter Sunday against the Chicago Cubs. And the Cubs defeating the Pirates 5-1 here on Easter Eve in Game 2 of the season. The Pirates now 1-1 on the year. And this was a game that Tyler Anderson played okay for a while. He eventually imploded. The Pirates bullpen gave up a couple runs, but didn't totally put kerosene on the fire. But the Cubs were able to swing the bats enough to get the victories. Chris Bryant going yard for Chicago. And again, they lead and won 5-1. I'm your host here, Mike Asti, on the Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I am going to be joined by somebody who joined me actually for a show last year, Tim Irr, who joins me from West Virginia's TV parts, a certain Pittsburgh sports fan as well, anchor reporter at WSAZ-TV in Charleston, West Virginia. So first off, Tim, I definitely the time. I'm enjoying the outside. I see you're enjoying the outside. We're having nice weather here. Not a great day for the Pirates, but a beautiful day in the neighborhood nonetheless.
Yeah, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. So we're lucky for that. It's springtime. We have baseball.
Right.
I mean, let's already think about how much better it is right now than it was last year. I mean, we have actual baseball with fans.
Right.
We had Brian Hayes, and that's
get there in a second.
Hey, sorry to steal your headline, but dang.
Yeah.
I'm just, but the thing is, if he was 30 years old, we'd be like, I think that might, and really, we're just happy to have baseball back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having baseball back is an absolute positive. Having any fans there is an absolute positive. Certainly a difference than last year with the truncated COVID season. The Pirates, though, 1-1. And honestly, when you're looking at this series, losing to Jake Arrieta and having that be the loss, not really the end of the world, probably what you would expect. And then if you can go into Easter Sunday with that being the rubber game, probably a positive for the Pirates, but of course the expectations aren't that great for this year. But that is the headline. You mentioned it, Brian Hayes' injury. Number one, what has he meant to you as a Pirate fan in terms of watching this team? We know the hot start at the end of last year, how well he played then, and even him hitting a dinger on opening day and opening up this season with tons of hope, maybe for Rookie of the Year and potentially being the Pirates All-Star.
Yeah.
But him going down, how much of an impact for you is that, not only for the team, but even potentially for ratings on TV? This could be the guy casual fans are watching.
Right. And you're right. It is the guy casual fans are watching because of all the Rookie of the Year buzz that was out there. And we got to see him in Charleston when he played for the West Virginia Power, and he was a standout there. So to see him being able to start the season the way he did was phenomenal. It was, headline grabbing down here for the sports. And when it came to the promise and what we see and the Rookie of the Year chatter, everything there was excitement about the Pirates. Not so much excitement about the team as a whole and the season as a whole, but about a player like that. It means a lot. And to lose somebody like that. And that's why, the injury report, the Edgar Snyder injury report is all that much more important right now to see exactly how bad of an injury this may be. And let's just hope and believe that it's, it wasn't a spike to the wrist or anything like that, that he left the field with, there will be blood. It looks like, maybe he might be able to hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully work through this. Yeah.
And of course they do have tons of games in a row. So that's the weirdness also of this year, even though they're getting more games in than last year. I was looking at the schedule after this to set up the future post-game shows, and I was thinking, man, I don't have a day off until maybe Friday of next week. It goes Sunday and then all the way through next week. Obviously a change of series. So somewhere in there, if he is able to.
So did you work out? Did you prepare? Did you work out like preparing for this? Did you do extra laps or do anything like special for this? Because, you got to be ready for it.
You got to be ready. Yeah, I walked around the block a little bit.
Yeah.
I brisk power walked around the block
There
here.
you go.
Enjoyed the weather as I'll train for maybe a color run at some point here. Enjoying the weather is what I can give. But yeah, Ke'Bryan Hayes going down is certainly big, not only for the team on the field, clearly the best player, clearly the driving force, clearly the face of the franchise, but even for ratings. Don't know the injury reports right now. We'll certainly get all that out there when we know, but obviously, you'd imagine some time off and some resting happening with him, despite all these games in a row, even if it's not serious, to go on the injured list. The Pirates lose here, game 2 of the season, game 2 of this opening series against Chicago Cubs, 5-1. Jake Arrieta the start for the Cubs. Tyler Anderson the start for the Pirates. He gave up a few runs prior to the bullpen getting in and allowing a couple more men to come home. Is the pitching staff for you the weakness of this team? I guess I'll kind of set you up there because there are hitters here. There's even Ryan Reynolds, who a couple years ago had a standout season last year, struggling, expected to do more this year. Yeah. Obviously, Josh Bell no longer on the club in Washington. But is the pitching staff the thing you're watching here in terms of what right now you expect to be the weakness, hope more from? They actually haven't got that bad at pitching performances to this point this year, but not the offense here in this one, of course.
Well, I think it has to be, and I think that has to be the concern for most people because it's in flux. I don't think this is the pitching staff, and I think any fan knows that. This is not the pitching staff that is going to that I think any fan or management, for that matter, would see as being in place 4, 5, 6 years down the road, or even 3 years down the road, for that matter. And some of these guys may be gone, summer when it comes time for trade, and that's if they're worth the trade. And yet at the same time, I think that this season, and including the pitching staff, this season as a whole, for the Pirates season, we have to look at it as fans, kind of like you look at do what for us? Who can be the more now than we did maybe at the beginning of the season? Who's the big surprise? Who's the stud? It's going to essentially the Pirates season of 2021 is going to be a one big long preseason, one big long look at who will be here for the future. And I think that includes the pitching staff as well. There are some guys on this team, on this pitching staff in the starting rotation that I think have a chance to do something and to prove something. And it may not be in a better than 500 wins and losses record. It may just be what they show the staff, the coaching staff.
It's going to be important, and this pitching staff is going to be in flux. Chad Kuhl, actually, oddly enough, was literally the last opening day starter named in all of baseball. He was the last guy to get the nod. Cool for him, but still he was the last guy to get the nod. And that kind of does tell you they didn't really feel like there really was anybody deserving of the honor. They have a bunch of number 2 or 3 starters, a lot of young kids. There's certainly not an ace on this staff. The pitching staff, for me, is what's going to hold this team back, even if the hitters pick it up from last year and Ke'Bryan Hayes can be healthy and can give you what you would expect. Again, the Pirates lose to the Cubs here on this Easter Eve, 5-1, now 1-1 on the year. The Easter matinee is now going to be the rubber match for this series. And honestly, even going into Sunday with a chance for the Pirates to win the opening series of the season is flat out outstanding, because last year it took a while to get to that point, and kind of the season already went in tubes after the first week and a half. I do want to ask you just kind of bluntly on that point. Obviously, the pitching staff seems to be the weakness. The bullpen maybe could be more than some would think. Certainly the hitters, while young, if healthy, could perform and help this team. But the expectations for this season aren't there. This is a rebuilding process, as you mentioned, everyone being evaluated, and certainly players will be moved at the deadline. I'd imagine Polanco is somebody that I would look to. If he can play better than last year, he's a veteran that over 30 could be moved. What are your expectations for this year? What are you watching for as a Pirate fan, as somebody looking for key? Hope he's healthy. Are you looking for the pitching staff to do more than you would think? You looking to see which players could get out of this team, because there are some predicting 100 losses, but there are some others that are thinking they crawl into late 80s in losses and surprise people. I'm not there, but what are your expectations right now? What are you watching?
It's an easy cop out, but I think we have to wait and see. I think we have to wait a month into the season before we can start making predictions about 100 losses or more like 80. I think at the same time,
Right.
I can't help, for the first time in a long time, I really liked the offseason, and I really I appreciated the moves that Cherington made, and I think that says a lot about what they want to do, and that's why I hate to just blow this season off and say that it's just one long big preseason, but it kind of is, and we have to look at this as yeah. Anytime any team, they're not obviously they're not the first team to rebuild. And but it's nice to see that they actually took it seriously, and they didn't, it wasn't one or two little pieces to try to save some money, but it looks like, they're really trying to rebuild for the future. So I think maybe a month into this thing, we might be able to look and say, you know what, we might not be looking at 100 losses. We may be looking at, and that's the hope, hope springs eternal. And that was great. You pointed to that last year. It just got squashed right from the very beginning. I mean, it was like usually the Pirates, they tease us,
you can imagine.
Yeah. Right. Oh my gosh. They're like, hey, we're always like, maybe they could do something here. Like this Pirate team, and all these Pirate fans it's like Bengals fans for football when they win 2 games, and then all of a sudden we're like, by June, we're like, oh, and then by July, we're like, when's football start? But, I think the fact that it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter what happens this year, because I really do think we need to see some of those building blocks put into place, even though a lot of these players that, they picked up in the offseason won't even play a role this year. The good baseball fan will be looking at how they do in other cities and how these players of the future are doing down the road. But I think the first month of the season, this Pirates team, it'll give us an idea of what to expect for the year. It's a long year, but I think maybe that first month, we'll talk again like a month from now, Mike. I think we'll be doing okay.
That's really, I guess, the glass half full outlook that fans got to have in some respect. I think the nail that you hit on the head, though, that I think is different for this year, obviously Pirate fans, you mentioned rebuilding, they have to understand that this management group isn't responsible for what happened in 1997, what happened in 2004, or even what happened in 2015 when that team was blown up after that 13-15 run. I feel like they blew it up too early, but that's not Ben Cherington. He has proven he can do it before. He does have a ring on his finger, but of course it's easier to do that with the Red Sox, let's be honest, than it is with the Pirates. Even during his time with Toronto, it's easier when there's more money to sprinkle around if you make a mistake. Who he drafts with Leiter out there throwing, it seems like every day you scroll Twitter, he's throwing a close call no-hitter, where they go in the draft and who they're able to select and how that continues. Obviously going to be a big part of Cherington. But I think one thing for me is the fact that he is not unwilling to answer questions and admit a rebuild is going on. Because in all seriousness, the past regime would come on shows, like this, would come on the network of the team that I'm on sometimes. They would avoid it. They would get mad if you asked it. They wouldn't admit it. And that's just, in a way, almost insulting to the fans. That's not going on now. And I do think they won some of the moves of the offseason. Right. Yeah, and I think they won some of the moves of the offseason. They did what they had to do. We will again see what happens the rest of this year. I think one thing that maybe I'm going to go less optimistic in terms of, you want to see what certain players can do. I don't think wins and losses matter this year at all. I don't, even if they lose 100 games, if Ke'Bryan Hayes is healthy and has an all-star year, if there's a progression, some individual players, if Brian Reynolds is better than last year, even if Polanco provides you trade value and they lose 100, that's not the end of the world. I don't think there's a big difference between losing 95 and 100. You can say what you want on, well, if they lose a little bit less and they win a little bit more, then it'll help them feel better about themselves moving forward. Yeah, but they're still not going to be a playoff team, and they're still going to lose a lot more than they win. I don't think the losses matter, the number, even if it's 100 or more, but how this team plays. And right now in the opening series, there's not too much to be upset at, even though, of course, they lose this one. And we will now see that rubber match if they can get their first series of the year won in the first series of the year. Regardless, that would certainly be a surprise already on the year. Tim, I definitely appreciate the time. I'll let you go back to your holiday weekend, and anyone who wonders if he's a Pittsburgh sports fan or not, you certainly can see the Iron City
Mike.
mug behind him. You can certainly see the Steelers mug behind him. So
They got
yeah,
Franco back there.
Franco back there, the Steelers logo.
It's everywhere.
It's a Steelers house for sure. Tim Irr from WSAZ-TV in Charleston, West Virginia. Tim, I definitely appreciate the time, and we'll definitely talk again soon. Have to have you back on one of these for sure moving forward.
You betcha, Mike. Hey, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Love talking baseball.
No problem. Again, that is Tim Irr of WSAZ-TV in Charleston, West Virginia. Was on one of these last year, wanted to get him on, so he comes on the first one I host of this year. And Alan Saunders and I will be with you as we move forward throughout this season. Ke'Bryan Hayes is, and I talked about this a little bit with Tim, of course, but Ke'Bryan Hayes is that player the casual fans are watching. He is the player that could be a legitimate all-star, not just one plucked, but a legitimate all-star this year. There are some saying he should even become part of the faces of Major League Baseball with Tatis Jr., etc., based on not only is he a great player, but he has a personality, which Major League Baseball desperately needs. And unlike Tatis and unlike some others, certainly like Mike Trout, who maybe needs more promotion, as great as his career has been to this point, arguably the greatest opening of a career ever, we need to see more from Ke'Bryan Hayes, of course. Yes, great last year in September. Obviously, opening day, great. Injured in this one. Again, as I'm speaking now, if you're watching this archive, I don't know if he is going to be out for a while. I don't know if this is going to be an injured list situation. I don't know if he's just going to sit out the game on Sunday and then able to return. I don't know if he can shake it off, but it didn't look good at that point. Tried to scroll around, haven't seen that information yet out there. But obviously, he means more than just on the field because he is that face of the team. He will bring casual fans in. And again, the personality as well as the success defensively, offensively, bolstering that infield. And the Pirates outfield can be okay right now. I don't think Brian Reynolds is going to do what he did 2 years ago. I don't think that'll ever happen. But I think if he can give you a lot more than last year, certainly can be a building block potential. Jacob Stallings, I mentioned actually on our morning show, I think is going to be potentially a team MVP type of guy in addition to Ke'Bryan Hayes if he's healthy, just because it can mean. Last year, no one thought he would become the starting catcher. He kind of was just a spark plug utility guy thrown in there. He now, for me, is a legit starting catcher. There are certainly worse catchers out there to have on your fantasy team, and maybe he can help repair that last name of Stallings in Pittsburgh. Newman helps the top of that lineup as well, setting the table. And again, the offense did not show up in this game. And while Tyler Anderson gave up a few runs, you got to look at these starters with who they really are. None of these guys are aces. None of these guys are 1 or 2. Chad Kuhl's not really a 1. Tyler Anderson's not really a 2. Chad Kuhl's probably better as a 3 or 4 on a really good team. Tyler Anderson probably wouldn't be in that rotation. Maybe, again, 3 or 4, 4 or 5 at best. Still somebody that's been around the block, but not that old, and certainly can maybe help you a little bit. This in his first season as a Pirate. And of course, Kuhl coming off of an injury and then last year with minimal starts. So again, kind of back to the Pirate fandom, but these are good pitchers. There's certainly reason to like them in the rotation on the staff, but there's nobody who can be that guy for this team, be the Garrett Cole now with the Astros and what he became after leaving the Pirates. There's no even Glass now, of course, what he's done with the Rays since leaving the Pirates. And you can be mad about some of those moves. You can be mad about giving up after 15. But again, Carrington has actually won some of these offseason deals. I do like what he's done in the offseason. You have to look at this season. Unlike Tim, I don't care about wins. That maybe is cool if you win, if you lose a little bit less. I'm not going to have parades like some Pirate fans if they would go ahead and lose 100. That shouldn't be a hashtag. You shouldn't be having parades with or without COVID. I'm not going to celebrate that, even virtually. But there is reason why this team might not be the worst team in baseball from what we've seen to this point. There are some really, really bad teams out there that still may lose more. And if they lose 100 games, no big deal, because this year is an admitted rebuild. It's about, can you get value for certain players in a trade market? Can you have enough from certain players to build around them in the future? And can you figure out this team whenever it does win? Think of this year again as more of that 2010 period with McCutchen being Ke'Bryan Hayes right now coming up, looking like a star. He'd eventually win an MVP. The team eventually would make the playoffs a few years in a row. We'll see if Ke'Bryan Hayes can make that happen, can become that guy, and this team can get there 3 or 4 years down the line. But it's certainly going to take some time. I want to thank Tim again. Of course, this a holiday eve show. So I get why not many of you join me for this one. We will hopefully be able to guide you through the rest of this Pirates season, hit at least a game or two within every one of these series between Alan and I, and then Matt, after Penguins season is over, will certainly join us, as he's right now doing those Penguin post-game shows. Basketball season over, so right now, in terms of Pittsburgh post-game, this is it, along with the Penguins. But of course, make sure you hit that subscribe button bottom of this video, because you get this. You get Pittsburgh post-game, but you get so much more. You get Mic'd Up with Mike Vukovic and I in the morning, presented by Martin Lawn Services. You get my show, Mic Drop, still going on. You get that on the channel, of course, throughout the family of networks, whatever site it will correspond with. You get player interviews, coach interviews. You get a lot of spring practice on our college sites of Nittany Sports Now, WV Sports Now, Steelers Now, of course. Gearing up for the NFL draft, we'll have our draft show at the end of the month. And of course, all of our coverage. Hit that subscribe button. You get a notification whenever anything is uploaded, goes live like these post-game shows, or is released and premiered on Pittsburgh Sports. Make sure to hit us up throughout the family of networks. Of course, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and at PGH Sports Live on Twitter. Again, on Twitter, and Pittsburgh Sports Live for social here of Pittsburgh Sports Live. The Pirates lose game 2 of the season, game 2 of the opening series, 5-1 to the Cubs. Jake Arrieta able to do more than enough, as he's that bugaboo for the Pirates, scoring 6, able to get the dub. The Pirates' Tyler Anderson gives up a few in 4 innings, I believe. Chris Bryant able to go yard, and enough from the Cubs offense. Jason Hayward also knocking some runs in there, as the Pirates offense just can't get up, just didn't wake up really for this game. But the story is Ke'Bryan Hayes injured after a couple of months. Is he healthy? What's the result of that injury? How long will he be out? And of course, this team really cannot handle him being out for too long, and that extends beyond the field of play. Again, the Pirates lose game 2 of the season, 5-1 on this Easter Eve, as Easter now becomes the rubber match to see if they can actually win a series in the opening series of the season. Last year, it took a while. And this team now 1-1 on the year. And the only bright spot, and we're seeing this so far from the Cubs, the NL Central, a little bit more win than it's been in recent years. This is basically a down year for the NL Central. So if you're going to rebuild, if you're going to get young, this is the year to maybe steal some games and be better than you normally would. Because again, and by no means are the Pirates playoff contender, but still, this NL Central is weak, one of the weaker divisions in baseball. And the Cardinals probably going to win it by default, but the Cubs, they've lost more than they've gained. So this is a weaker Cubs team than we've probably seen in 5 or 6 years as well. Again, I'm your host, Mike Asti. Thanks again to Tim Irr of WSAZ-TV in Charleston, West Virginia. We'll have him certainly back here on one of these Pittsburgh post-game shows, certainly after a Pirates game or two. Maybe jump him on some Penguin shows, maybe even Steelers shows when we get to Steelers season. Maybe I'll throw him on those as well. Hit that subscribe button, follow family of networks. The Pirates lose game 2. Easter Sunday is now that rubber match. Ke'Bryan Hayes' health, though, that's what you need to search for. That's the headline. That's the news we're going to try to get you after this show, because that's the takeaway right now. The offense didn't do enough. The pitching was okay. The bullpen did not totally collapse, but worse than game 1. Game 3 now of the season on Sunday, with a lot of games coming up and not many days off, now gives them a chance to win that opening series of the year. But will it be without Ke'Bryan Hayes? How long will they be without Ke'Bryan Hayes? That's what to watch for moving forward after game 2, a loss for the Pirates, 5-1 at the hands of the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley.